New year, new chair, let's go. LarryBoy, the animated series, is an interesting one in Big Idea's history. After the first two LarryBoy episodes of VeggieTales were immensely popular, the idea of an animated cartoon series was being discussed. At first they thought about doing it in the traditional CG style, but after the crew worked around the clock on Jonah, a VeggieTales movie, they decided to go in a different direction, as this time they would be animating in Adobe Flash. Interestingly, this series was not originally created by Phil Vischer and Mike Naraki, very similarly to 321 Penguins. The series was initially developed by Tom Bancroft, who used to work over at NOSD. You know, before they became too woke for my liking. Ha 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 ha. I kid. I actually never liked them. I mean, don't you know? They've been selling sex and drugs to kids since the 90s. Or at least that's what Pat Robertson told me. You claim to be a player, but I fucked your wife. The series began in 2002 and ended in 2003, with only 4 episodes to speak of. Big Idea higher-up, Tim Hodge, said the series was mostly done as an experiment that didn't go in the direction the company wanted to, though I can't really blame them. At the time, Big Idea was going through a bankruptcy, which put the studio up for sale until it was bought out by Classic Media in 2004. But did this series deserve to end as quickly as it did? Well, unlike 321 Penguins, I can actually look at all the episodes in one video. I know, I only did one video on 321 Penguins. I'll try to get to them later. It was a really good series, it deserved more attention. But for now, let's look at the 4 episodes of the LarryBoy animated series. Starting with episode 1, The Angry Eyebrows, we see the horribly vile beast attacking Bumbleberg, which is a... what she said, and LarryBoy arrives on the scene to stop the creature, revealing that it's just these two guys who use the costume to get easier access to food. Shouldn't these characters have just been Jimmy and Jerry Gourd? I mean, they were both rotund and had a hankering for food all the time, so why didn't they just reuse those characters? And we begin the amazing rogues gallery in this series with Awful Alvin and the ever-beloved iconic character of Lampy.
Dance with me, Lampy!
Then we see Larry at his day job, the janitor at the newspaper company The Daily Bumble, where Bob the Tomato is the head editor, Junior Asparagus is a journalist. I believe there's a term for that, it's called child labor. I didn't realize that this series took place in China. And a new character for the series, Vicky, another journalist who is also a love interest for Larry since she is also a cucumber. The gang get visited by a mushroom woman who invented a machine that takes old hair and converts them into hats. But of course, Larry ends up messing things up and she gets really mad at him. Later that night, Larry goes to the local superhero classes at the community college where the master, Bok Choy, teaches him and fellow hero students the lessons of each episode. This one, of course, being on how to let go of anger. I feel obliged to point out that this episode's lesson was later done in an episode of VeggieTales in the House. And needless to say, this episode does it a lot better.
With my angry eyebrows!
That's the title! So Awful Alvin unleashes the eyebrows, and they latch onto those who haven't let go of their anger. Larry notices Lampy on the roof. Why is he there?
I gotta talk to Archibald!
Wait, I thought Archibald's name was Alfred in the LarryBoy episodes, but now he's back to Archibald again?
There's that beeping again. It's driving me nuts.
That's my tea in the microwave. I get it.
I think the Fib from Outer Space would like to have a word with you. Or I guess it's okay when he does it because he's a superhero and they have to conceal their secret identity. I've seen Bible Man. I know how this kind of thing works. So with all of Bumbleberg angry at each other, LarryBoy shows up and confronts Awful Alvin, as well as Lampy. He's also there.
What if I had my angry eyebrows fill your Larrymobile with chocolate syrup?
Little does awful Alvin know that LarryBoy actually loves chocolate. Yes, I know it was a couple of years later with LarryBoy and the Bad Apple, but my point still stands. LarryBoy then gets angry, but then remembers the lesson on anger that he learned earlier in the episode and lets go of it just a couple seconds later. And Alvin ends up getting defeated by his own creation, along with the aid of that hat machine from earlier in the episode.
I'll get you for this. I'll always be angry about this one. No, not me. Not me.
On to the second episode in the series, Lego My Ego. This one begins with Larry screaming while him and Archibald are on a Ferris wheel. That is until some kind of device starts shooting cotton candy everywhere. LarryBoy tries to stop it with his plunger ear, but it ends up clogging up the machine and exploding. And then these two eggplant guys from episode 1 show up and eat all of the cotton candy, saving the day.
I think I may have found a clue.
Ultra Sucrose Enhancement Catalyzer.
Great gardens, chemical sabotage. That can only mean one person.
Yeah, and I have to point out, we already have a pre-existing cop character in the LarryBoy mythos, played by Scooter the Carrot. I don't see why they had to create new characters to fill these occupations when we already had them. Oh, what? What do you mean that's nitpicking?
That's right, the alchemist.
You won't get away with this.
Hey, Larry boy, wanna smell my flower?
Wow, I like to smell flowers.
It's a trap.
But the cop captures the alchemist as he tries to make a break for it. But before he's hauled off, he says LarryBoy isn't a hero because he didn't stop him. That will set up the lesson of self-esteem and ego for later. After annoying a fellow superhero at the community college, LarryBoy walks home and soon is triggered by another bad guy who is obviously in a costume. In this case, LarryBoy begins to badmouth the police officer from earlier, and it seems the alchemist's flower has the ability to emit a gas that makes people smaller whenever LarryBoy tries to prop himself up. And it also happens to the eggplants the next day when LarryBoy notices a statue that was made in honor of them.
LarryBoy was putting others down to build himself up.
I wanted to say that part.
Go ahead, Colby.
Never mind. Just show the next slide. Mom, how did that get in there?
Oh, you were so cute when you were a baby.
So the bad guy of this episode works alongside his mother. Okay, then. Though to be fair, we are in the middle of a recession, so maybe it's just difficult to hire fellow henchmen or get proper bad guy technology. After LarryBoy badmouths the entire town, they are then shrunken down and put into a shoebox.
It takes your supercharged ego cloud and turns it into a supercharged version of yourself!
What's this? An evil version of the main hero? What is this? A 2009 YouTube review series or something?
Every time you try to build yourself up by making someone else feel small, you only make alter ego stronger!
I can't beat you. What? At least not by myself. I need help from guys like Archie or Officer Ola. I don't know what I'd do without him. Then there's Bob. He's always had good advice for me. In Junior, he may be a small tyke, but boy is he sharp.
Ha! You guys are in big trouble!
Everyone stay back, or the tomato gets it.
Whoa, slow it down there. We just went from 0 to 100 really quick on that one. Oh, of course they're defeated, and the day is saved with some super heroic help. Halfway through this little retrospective, I feel it's important to point out that these episodes are only about 20 or so minutes long, and to fill out a regular 30-minute runtime, they would often tag on shorts at the end of each episode. I personally think the best of these shorts goes to the one where LarryBoy is trying to get rid of a fly that is annoying him. And yes, that short was then ripped off for an episode of the AMC classic show, Fixing Good. The writers of that episode clearly saw that short and decided to rip it off thinking nobody would notice. But you heard it here, folks. I'm not falling for it. I know for a fact that that show ripped off LarryBoy. Moving on to episode 3, the Yodel Napper. We begin with Larry and Archibald waiting in line so Larry can buy a new Hula Heidi doll. Ew, Larry plays with little girls' toys? Ugh. Next thing you're gonna tell me is that he's a brony. But not only are the dolls out of reach, but it seems that this hideous blue blob is attacking the toy store. How could they possibly stop such a dastardly creature?
Hi, I'm Miss Pretty Blue. I'm so cute. Please go away, Mr. Blue Crazy Monster.
No, 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 not like that. There you go, Larry, using your musical ingenuity. I'm so proud of you. Would have preferred if you used the tuba like you usually do in your theme song, but I can let it slide. Still very good. 10 out of 10. Larry is pretty miffed about not getting the new Hula Heidi doll, but him and Archibald head off to a yodel show that night. All fine and good, but uh-oh, the yodeler has been napped.
Don't worry, Mayor Fleming. LarryBoy is on the case.
I know it's inappropriate to ask at a time like this, but why couldn't they use Madame Blueberry as the mayor? She was the mayor in the other LarryBoy episodes. Unless this is supposed to be like a prequel series before Madame Blueberry was inducted into being the mayor of Bumbleberg. Gosh darn it, I don't like change. Anyway, who would possibly want to kidnap a yodeler?
Welcome to my castle. I am Greta von Grossam, cruel ruler of Zucchinia, scourge of Bumbleberg, stealer of yodelers, und schnappi dresser.
Ah, I see. Keeping in tradition with these episodes that the villains always have to have hands. Although I think they stopped doing that after the Bad Apple episode. Again, that was years later, but yeah, I think after this one they stopped doing that.
Why would someone yodel nap my sweet, melodious anger warble throat?
In terms of progressive points, I give it a 6 out of 10. Could be more LGBTQ plus characters in this series, but as far as a Christian show goes, that's pretty progressive.
You claim to be a player, but I fucked your wife.
Anyway, Archibald comes up with a plan that involves Larry dressing up as a yodeler so he can get kidnapped and get into the villain's lair and save the others. Come the night of the yodeling show, and Larry doesn't know how to yodel. Last time I checked, Larry once played a yodeling veterinarian of the Alps, so I am calling shenanigans.
He's not even yodeling. He's just saying the word yodel over and over.
Hey, I don't care how bad he is. We do not throw tomatoes in this town.
Okay, that was actually really funny. No sarcasm, no sarcastic laugh track and applause here. That was actually pretty good. Of course we know where this one is going. LarryBoy gets kidnapped. Greta threatens to drown him in pudding? Yeah, pudding, okay. He manages to escape and save the yodelers, but Greta Thunberg activates a trap door. Not the first time Larry had to go through that. Daniel in the Lion's Den, anyone?
Hey! Wow! Hula friends!
Meet my hula friend, Ame!
Lava lamp, away!
One of the yodelers ends up playing some polka, the dolls short circuit, and LarryBoy defeats Greta by dumping her own pudding onto her. Let's end with some yodeling. And now we've come to the last episode of the series, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And there's Vicky. Only the cutest cuke in town.
You know, I think Vicky just might go to the Founders Day dance with you this year, if you'd get up the nerve to ask her.
Oh yeah, like that'll happen, Arch. When pigs fly. Oh no! I've been bacon!
Pigs shooting bacon. Okay, that is just plain messed up.
My awful plan of villainous villainy is working to perfection!
Your plan? You mean my plan to distract LarryBoy while we break into the Bumbleberg science labs?
I know they weren't aware this was going to be the last episode of the show when they were making it, but how awesome would it have been if they got the Alchemist in on this? You know, as a way to wrap up the series, have all the villains come together and try to stop LarryBoy by working together. This was ripped off by Marvel and Disney when they did Endgame. Endgame clearly ripped off LarryBoy. Wake up, people, it's right in front of you. Well, as LarryBoy plummets to the ground, he is then saved by a fellow superhero, the Dark Crow. He scares away the pigs, but as they try to fly back to get him, LarryBoy accidentally ejects and knocks the pigs into a lake. When in that moment, he then gets a call from Archibald, who notifies him about an attempted robbery at the Bumbleberg Science Lab.
This loose cord is a safety hazard. A good superhero always takes time to prevent accidents.
No!
Of course, the villains escape and make off with a machine that turns everything into over-easy eggs. But hey, no time for that. Time for more community college life lessons.
What if the town that's under your sworn protection is invaded by an overgrown seedless grape?
Who are you calling seedless? You both need to hear the words of my lesson. Heroes, turn your superhero handbooks to section 21, paragraph 4, subsection 9 and 10. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion.
Anyway, the next day, Bob Jr. and Vicky go to the Bumbleberg Museum of History and Old Stuff, which happens to be next door to the Derek Zoolander Center for kids who can't read good and who want to learn to do other stuff good too. As the villains show up, steal some swag, and tie up these guys. Our heroes show up, and just as it seems the day is going to be saved...
This year? Are they gonna have refreshments? You know, like hot fudge sundaes at the dance?
Did you say dance? I was born to dance.
But Alvin, Greta, and Lampy kidnap Vicky and turn our bickering heroes' costumes into eggs. And now they have to wear these things. Because neither of them have backup super suits. I mean, I thought Larry was a millionaire in this continuity. Well, anyway, the science twists from earlier give them access to a giant robot rabbit to stop the bad guys, who are just turning things into eggs.
Just because they could, and just because they were bad.
That's some great character motivation right there. They're about to get the drop on the villains, but since they just can't get along at this moment, LarryBoy and Dark Crow get knocked out by the giant eggs and wake up in their lair. But it seems the villains are more dysfunctional than they are.
Okay. Why don't we vote on who gets to throw the switch?
Fine. But Lappy's vote doesn't count.
Oh, of course it counts.
I just have to say, this is clearly a rigged election here. This is not fair. I demand a recount. So now, utilizing teamwork, Dark Crow and LarryBoy stop the two villains. 3 if you count Lampy. The egg machine is destroyed, they're taken to jail, and Larry finally gets the girl.
Didn't you want to ask me to the Founders Day dance, LarryBoy?
Oh, right.
I'd love to go with you.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I guess they're cute together, but compared to Larry and Petunia...
That real gold?
Oh, excuse me.
No, I'll get it. No, allow me.
Oh, excuse me. I got it.
Yeah, they got nothing on them. Larry and Petunia, best VeggieTales romance. Fact!
Wait for me, LarryBoy. We are some team, are we not? We must do everything together now. I will show you how to dance because I am the Dark Crow. I am a very talented choreographer, and you should meet. She does all my music.
That was the LarryBoy animated series, and while it was very shortly lived, I actually really liked it. It's interesting because despite the show actually being nominated for good sound design, This was actually not a well-received series at first. When the first episode came out, people didn't like how choppy the animation was and said that the designs weren't that good and that it all felt very cheap. But you know what though? I'm kind of happy to see that over the years it's developed a cult following, and a lot of people said that it was actually an underappreciated gem. Tim Hodge may have said this was a failed experiment at the time, but honestly, yeah, I think this was actually an underappreciated series, and I think if they actually got to make more episodes after the fourth one, then maybe the series would have started picking up some more momentum. Like a lot of VeggieTales fans had come to expect, the humor and the characters and the morals are what usually bring this together. The animation, while not perfect, wasn't what we originally came for. Sure, the animation in the proper series got better with time, but we look back on some of the oldest episodes of VeggieTales not really caring about that, because the writing was just so strong, and that's what we liked about it. Out of all the episodes, I think the second episode is my least favorite. Not that it's bad or anything, but it's just not as memorable as some of the other ones. I think out of all of them, my personal favorites would be the first episode and the fourth episode, respectively. Although the Yodel Napper episode is also really good, too. I am curious to see what would have happened if this series went on a little bit longer. And I do appreciate that we got LarryBoy episodes years after this came out and that the concept for the character wasn't completely lost. But as it stands, while it is very shortly lived, I think the LarryBoy animated series was perfectly fine for what it was. It may not have been perfect, but you know what? For a quote-unquote failed experiment, you could certainly do far worse. So remember everyone, God made you special, He loves you very much, and may Jesus be with you.
I gave up telemarketing for this.